The Battle of Shiloh during the American Civil War in April of 1862 would last only 2 days but left nearly 3,500 men dead in Hardin County, Tennessee. Occurring only 1 year into the 5-year American Civil War, it would remain one of the deadliest battles fought over the entire course of the war. On the first day of the battle on April 6, 1862, the Confederate Army led by General Albert Sidney Johnston launched a surprise attack against the Union Army led by General Ulysses S. Grant. During this first day of battle, General Johnston would be wounded at around 2:30 p.m. and die shortly after, making him the highest-ranking fatality from either side of the Civil War. General Grant launched a counteroffensive the next day after his Army of Tennessee was reinforced by portions of the Army of Ohio overnight. This led to a Union victory after the Confederates were forced to retreat further south, but not without extensive casualties on both sides.
The total number of casualties during the Battle of Shiloh was 23,746, with 13,047 on the side of the Union and 10,699 on the Confederate side, making it the bloodiest battle since the beginning of the war. These numbers are sort of debated, but that's roughly average. The Confederate President Jefferson Davis reported on April 8th, so just right after the battle was fought, that Johnston had gained a total victory, only adding in last minute that he had been killed during the battle. And on the side of the Union, multiple politicians were saying that General Grant was drunk during the battle and that he was a political liability. I think probably just because it was a number of casualties that had not really been seen up to that point during the war, so people were all just kind of freaking out. In the days and weeks that followed the battle, it became pretty obvious, though, that the Union had won because of the loss of Johnston and the Confederate retreat off the Tennessee River.
During and after the battle, medics struggled to do their best to look after the wounded, but given the time period and circumstances of the war, there was often not a lot that they could do. The biggest cause of death was not from the wound itself, but from the infection that came so easily when soldiers were set to recover from their wounds in muddy fields and makeshift field hospitals. It's in these makeshift field hospitals at the Battle of Shiloh that we get to the real heart of this story.
On the night of April 6th, so the first night after the battle had begun, a lot of the soldiers, according to legend, noticed that their gunshot wounds and whatnot were glowing. And doctors supposedly noticed that the people who had glowing wounds were surviving at much higher rates than people who didn't. That gave the nickname Angel's Glow to this phenomenon that was happening. Something magical happened. The immediate explanation for this phenomenon being sort of like a supernatural protector or something, giving it that Angel's Glow nickname. But the actual cause of this would be reopened in 2001 by some high school students in Maryland. You might have heard of him. His name is Donald Trump.
Bill Martin was a senior at Bowie High School in Bowie, Maryland, when him and his family took a trip to visit the site of the Battle of Shiloh. On that visit, Bill read all about the legend of the Angel's Glow and immediately began to make a connection. His mother, Phyllis Martin, was a microbiologist that had recently been studying a bacteria called Photor habdis luminescens. I am probably saying that incorrectly. Which is known for its ability to emit light. He wondered if this bacteria might have something to do with the soldiers' glowing wounds. Bill later enlisted his friend John Curtis and began running experiments to determine if Bill's theory was correct.
P. luminescens lives, which I hope that I am saying that correctly, lives in a worm called a nematode that vomits on its host after it feeds, which then spreads the P. luminescens bacteria to its host. The warm bodies of the soldiers in that cold, muddy environment would have made a perfect host for those worms, so it would have explained pretty well how that bacteria got on their wounds.
Bill and John would also run tests to see if and how the P. luminescens helped the soldiers to recover from their wounds. In doing so, they found that this bacteria would kill off a lot of other bacteria that would potentially cause infections, making them essentially a topical antibiotic. This is something that medics at the time would certainly not have understood, as antibiotics were not invented until 1928 when penicillin was made.
Boom. Next freaking paragraph.
Bill and John would report their findings in a project titled Civil War Wounds That Glowed at the 2001 Intel International Science and Engineering Science Fair in San Jose, California, where they would end up winning first place. At first glance, it seems like this explanation is likely what happened at the Battle of Shiloh. It makes a lot of sense with scientific data to back it up. but most scientists and historians have come to a different conclusion.
When it comes to historical events, most historians would corroborate that the most credible sources from historical events are from people who were actually there. And from the 2000 sort of first-person primary sources, is that primary source?
First-person accounts.
First-person accounts. I am a college student, by the way. From the 2000 such sources, from the Battle of Shiloh, there's zero reports that say anything about glowing wounds. If you were to look up this story right now on Google, everything is in reference to the project by the high school students. So this could mean one of sort of two things. That this legend was just passed down orally through generations since the 1800s, or that Bill and John, or just somebody else entirely, made it up. It does seem that it might be Bill and John, because if you look up, pretty much everything coincides with that 2001 science fair project. They also would have had a decent motive, because I couldn't find direct numbers for the 2001, but in 2020, they had, for the first place prize of that science fair, the winner won $5,000. So they would have had some sort of financial motive to do that. A lot of historians, like if you Google this, will sort of agree with that sentiment that Bill and John probably made it up just for that science fair. I mean, we'll put a link in the description. There's a USDA article about this science fair, and it's like presenting it as fact, which is crazy, because then if you go on a bunch of different places, it's like probably is not real. In my own opinion, I'd really like to hope that this story is true, because if I put myself in the shoes of a
Union
soldier and like just seeing my wound glow after like witnessing one of the bloodiest battles that like anybody had seen to that point, and the only explanation being like this is God healing me, would be really cool, I think. And also just like the morale boost that would have given the troops, because like really regardless of the side, obviously we're glad one side won, but regardless of which side you were on, the brutality was sort of equal both ways. So just to think about that is cool. The Civil War is a really interesting time period to me, because it gives us some of the earliest usage of widespread photography. So it gives us basically the earliest look we can see into almost like an alien world. That's probably not like a good way to phrase it, but it's just like so foreign, because like the way people dress just like doesn't make sense. The firearms technology is just compared to, or I mean just in all the weapons technology, it's just so foreign to us. But then I don't know, just thinking about all of the violence kind of humanizes all of it. All of that to say, I hope that this story is true, because I just think it'd be really cool. And I think putting myself in the shoes of a soldier and thinking of that happening would be pretty epic. Does Nicholas have anything to add? He's been pacing back there all freaking...
Nope. What do you think about that?
Yeah, thanks for watching this video. I have more topics that I'm going to cover, but a lot of them just seem... Like somebody commented one about Paul Wellstone. We're doing a video on that, but it's very similar topic to the first video, so I didn't want to just do like plane crash video. So we're breaking it up with this one, because I thought it was interesting. And so yeah, we got a bunch of videos planned, and they're going to be really cool. So stay tuned. They're going to be really cool. The support on the first video was crazy. Like I don't know, did I say it in the video how quick? Like
yeah, at the very end, you were like, I wrote this in a day.
Yeah, I like heard that story in a podcast and then wrote it. I think I started writing at like 2 for like 2 hours, researched, wrote the topic or wrote the script, and then set up the set in my brother's room, and then was like, all right, record me and edit this. And then we posted it.
Yeah.
Got way more interactions than we thought we would, but that's cool because I like doing this and it's fun.
Yeah, after the first day, I think, or like first, because I posted it like midday. After the first like 6 hours, it had, I think, 9 views. And then I went to work the next day, and I checked, and it had like 600 with like 10 comments.
Damn.
I was freaking out.
So yeah. All right, that's it.